So, actor Chris Pratt, famous for characters he's played in Guardians of the Galaxy, Jurassic World, the Lego Movie, the show Parks and Recreation, things like that, recently appeared on Bill Maher's show. Is that how you say his name? Club
Bill
Random
Maher.
Podcast. Bill Maher. See, I need to know these things ahead of time. That would help a lot. In their discussion, he made some seemingly wild and strange statements about the Trump administration. And these statements are causing a stir among conservatives and liberals on both sides of the aisle. Did he really just end his career forever? Let's dive into this and find out, because I know that we are canceling cancel culture to an extent, but I don't know if we've canceled it enough to save Chris and pull him out of the fire he's thrown himself into. So what actually went down in this interview, Doug?
Well, here's the funny thing about this. This came as a shock to me that people were even reacting to this at all, because the reality, I watched the interview and I was like waiting for that moment, like where Chris Pratt said this thing that everybody's upset about. And I waited and I waited and I waited, and nothing he ever said was like, I was like, what happened? Like, I had to go back and watch other videos, like, what did Chris Pratt say that everybody didn't like? And I was like, oh, I went right on through that part and didn't even see that. So it's really weird. But here's kind of the a little bit of the breakdown. So the Bill Maher has this show that is not his normal. I can't remember the name of his other show. It's a different late night show, but this is a different show where he basically has people come on and they hang out and they just chat for a couple hours and they just see where the conversation goes. And it seems like a fun idea, right? And so he had Chris Pratt on. They talked about all kinds of things. They talked about Hollywood. They talked about Chris Pratt's personal life and his acting life and all of that good stuff, right? And then apparently Chris Pratt, which I actually didn't know this, he is related by marriage to RFK. So he's married to the daughter of RFK Jr.'s first cousin. So he's around RFK at points in his life. And Bill Maher is like, I'm sure people are always hitting you up about RFK because they want to know the inside scoop on like whatever it is he's doing in the government right now. And he goes on to say about the public in general, they're talking about what RFK is doing specifically with the health in general of the country. And Bill is kind of all over the place because I'm pretty sure he started this podcast under the influence of something. And so they're drinking, I think, whiskey the whole time. But yeah, like right off the bat, you can tell Bill Maher's like a little somewhere in a different world. And so he's just kind of all over the place. And Chris Pratt's just patiently going with it, but he's talking about the people's reaction to RFK Jr. And he's saying about the people in general, they kind of get it, that what makes them sick is all the stuff in the water and the air and the food and giving kids pharmaceuticals when they're young and lots of things where we're self-polluting. And Bill agrees with some of the general things that RFK is doing, but he also kind of calls him out on a little bit of the more nutty things, in his opinion, that RFK Jr. is doing. And Chris Pratt has a really, I think, pretty all right response for being an actor in the middle of liberal Hollywood, and also trying to be careful about what he says and how he says it. And he says, I kind of feel the same way that you do. I've spent a number of occasions hanging with him, RFK, just strictly a family dinner kind of vibe. I really got along with him well. I think he's funny. I like him. I love him. And then Bill says that he said to RFK Jr. one time, your father would be so proud that you stuck to your guns more than anybody. And Chris said, it's a virtue. So
he's talking about RFK sticking to his guns and doing what he believes is the right thing, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Regardless of people disagreeing with it or whatever, it's they were kind of complimenting each other's capability to do that, because Bill Maher also does the same thing kind of a little bit on the other side of the aisle. He's very much very, very much stick to his guns kind of guy, But so then when Chris was talking about Hollywood and politics in general, he says, I've seen how the person you are can be such a contrast to the person people are being told you are. And then he quoted Proverbs, which was a neat thing to hear. He said, Proverbs 26:20, for lack of wood, the fire will go out. He had more comments. And so everything I've said so far, I'm sure people can hear and be like, okay, interesting. I'm still not sure where this is going, but he did say a little bit more than that, that got a little bit more attention from everybody. But before we talk about his comments, we are going to hear a word from our sponsor.
Investing can be confusing and scary, but it doesn't have to be. Genesis Gold Group takes the guessing out of the game and guides you on your gold investment journey. We at Filibusted love the genius design of the Prepper Bar, which breaks up into sections, kind of like a chocolate bar. But if you prefer high security insured gold storage, they have that too. And unlike Fort Knox, the gold is actually there, 100% owned by you. So don't wait to get started. Visit filibustedgold.com today for a free investment guide from Genesis Gold Group.
So Chris Pratt was being very careful about how he said this, but Maher kind of pushed him a little bit in a funny way. And Chris responds to that general pushing with saying this: in politics, you inherit enemies. When you jump onto the bandwagon with the person who's the most divisive president ever, you're going to be made to look terrible. For the most part, I wish him well. And I think he was referencing RFK at that point. And then he says, there are certain things he oversees that seem to be supported in a bipartisan way, like getting terrible toxic stuff out of our kids' food, that if you just do that, that's amazing. I'd hate to be so mired in hatred for the president that any success from his administration is something I'd have an allergic reaction to. If they do it, I don't want it to happen. Be reasonable here. I want them all to be successful. And so that, I think, was the most
I think he was saying that
thing that he said.
Yeah, I think he was making that statement accusing this other side of saying, well, if they do it, if the Trump administration does this, I don't want it to happen, like even if it's a good thing. And I agree with you, Doug. I think that's crazy because he actually makes two big jabs at the president and at the Trump administration, where he says the person who's the most divisive president ever, which, could be a jab, but also is like kind of true. It's like he is very divisive in the sense of people have divided over him, so it's like that could be a very neutral statement. But then he goes on to say, I'd hate to be so mired in hatred for the president. So he kind of admits that he doesn't like, he's like, well, I hate the president a lot, but I don't want to hate him so much that, he's definitely framing it for a liberal audience.
Yeah.
But I think it's crazy that people are like reacting to this, it's crazy because he says one thing, but he's like, but if something is like intrinsically good, shouldn't it happen no matter who's in charge? Like, that's kind of the point he's making. That's crazy.
I think that what's interesting about, and this is a problem when you have a really genuine conversation with somebody, but you also have to be careful about the words you choose. We experience it here on Filibusted, where oftentimes we'll say something and we don't get to fully express what we mean by that. And it's not necessarily because we're scared or we don't want to do it or whatever. It's just when you're in the moment, you don't really think like, oh, maybe I could have explained that a little bit better, or I could have made my point in a different way. And then it gets published and you move on with life and you're like, well, hopefully people have grace. And unfortunately, a lot of people just don't. And I think that what he said, it really could be taken either way. Actually, it depends on the angle with which you look at it, because he didn't say anything so direct enough that you could pin him to the wall on it.
Right.
No matter what side of the aisle you're on, you could be like, he said this or he said that. And it's like, that's interesting.
Right. He's not saying he hates the president, but he's framing it in such a way that the left would assume that that's what he means. But even then, they're taking the small bit that he said positively and just, freaking out. Let's jump into some of the reactions, because like the public has reacted in kind of a wild way to his statements. And I will say this much. I will say, on the right, when it comes to the conservative reaction to this, like anytime somebody in Hollywood says something positively about the conservative movement or culture or whatever, or about the Trump administration, whatever, we like put them up in lights and we stick their quotes out front. And if they had a chance of surviving, like we make sure that they don't survive. We make sure that their career gets ended, because we're like, yay, like look what they said. Everybody knows now. They might have gotten away with keeping it under wraps, except for the fact that we're all going to celebrate it and throw it up into the headlines.
It's true.
So I think that's hilarious. But yeah,
It's because it's so uncommon.
Exactly. That's why. It's because it's so
Yeah.
uncommon. But what are people saying in response?
Oh man, it's all over the place. We've got some quotes here, and I'll pull a few from my memory log too. But let's get into this. Chris Pratt appears to be losing some fans for going on Bill Maher's podcast Monday. This is like what everybody's reporting on, right? Like he's losing fans, all right? There's a mom on Instagram says, if you support RFK Jr., I can't support you. Another quote,
which is crazy because he says, I like him, I love him, and RFK Jr. is his relative.
Well, so you know what I think part of it is? Yeah.
But she's saying like you better
sorry,
you better like not be loyal to your relative anymore and not like, not love your relative. Yeah. Like that's crazy to me. That's crazy.
I think that part of the problem with people on the left side over like the super liberal side, people who will say things like this is they're so used to people in the media just agreeing with everything that they say that they can't handle it, mm-hmm. Because I look at like on the conservative side, all kinds of people all over the place are saying things that I don't agree with. And I'm not like throwing a hissy fit and going online and saying, well, I can't support you. Then like it has to get to a pretty bad point because I'm used to it. I'm like, well, yeah, in general,
we're used to
everybody in the media, at least, mm-hmm. doesn't really agree with my viewpoint on it. So, but they're like they're shocked by it. They're like, what? You mean a Hollywood actor doesn't think the way that I think they should think? And it just blows their minds.
And I think that's why we're seeing, I mean, people have seen the headlines about how the Democrats are scrambling when it comes to the next, midterm elections and stuff, scrambling to try to, raise their chances in the polls and stuff like that. And I think maybe the reason, if that's true, if that's really what's happening, I think the reason is because the right is so accepting when it comes to disagreement, and the left is so exclusive, that if you don't agree 100% with everything they say, you're out, and I think they're just slowly chipping away at that block, and making that golden idol of the left, smaller and smaller and smaller, like they're, it's like it's whittling down to nothing eventually. And I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of happy about that, but also kind of not, because now we're seeing weird things happen with everybody that's come over to where it's like now the left is rebuilding itself in a spot on the right. It's kind of weird, but we're not going to get into that today. But it is very strange that how exclusive they are when they say we're, they call themselves inclusive, and it's
if you disagree with one little thing, you're out. Like there's no disagreement allowed. That's kind of the vibe from the far left, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Right. The far
which
left
is pushing a lot of people who think more liberally closer to the center. And they're actually losing their base because of it, which is, basically what you're saying there. Okay. Here's a couple more for you. I will never watch anything that you're in or associated with. Never. Yes, you will actually give it 2 months and you'll be tuning in. You'll be watching it. And
if he gets hired again, but this is the question is he going to get hired again?
He's doing his own thing. The show that he's got, he's producing it. Like, I mean, so it's just
that's probably what he probably knows, he's probably already getting canceled if he's doing that.
Yeah. I'm sure that he's got a plan in place to make sure that he's still got a job after this. And I'm willing to bet that he's done his due diligence in that way, because he's probably already seen where this is going, so I bet he's got something set up. But that's why I think if I'm not mistaken, he is actually producing the new show that he's in. I can't remember the name of it, but so that's
smart.
That's pretty big deal.
That's what he needs to do. Yeah. Or else he's not going to get a job.
Yeah. Here's one that I didn't really fully understand, but it's a weird comment. It's Peter Quill would hate you. I don't know.
Peter Quill is his character from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh, I didn't like Guardians.
They're like, I love this character that you play, but I hate you now. Like that's what they're saying.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's not surprising. Man. Pro RFK Jr., not my Star-Lord.
That's the same character. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then here's the last one. This is a long one. Hold on for it. I was such a fan. I really wish you'd consider that your distant relative and our so-called president are so unbelievably dangerous as people before you speak out in near defense and indifference to their atrocities. I'm agnostic myself, but I'd urge you to pray on this with an open heart and mind. Your reach is broad, and anything other than disdain for DT is a major oversight at best.
Wow.
It is.
What's interesting is I wonder if that person is willing to actually like do the research and look at the positive things that Trump has done.
Right.
You know, like where it's like, can you not see that some, you know, not everything, but like, can you not see that some of these things are intrinsically just good for people? Yeah. You know, like we did an episode recently where Reese brought the 6 different, you know, peace deals that Trump has made with different factions around the world that have been fighting for a long period of time. And it's like nobody else has been able to bring peace to these issues between nations and between people groups. And yet Trump has done 6. He did 6 in 6 months. He's trying to do 7 in 7 months. We'll see if that works out or not. But it's like, can you not see that at least some good is being done, even if you're on the far left? And it's like, that's where I'm like, are people so entrenched in the lies of the liberal media, you know, that they're unable to get out of it at this point? Like, and I hope not, you know, I hope people start waking up, but, and I'm not defending everything that Trump is doing. I'm not defending everything RFK Jr. is doing. Right. But it's like, at least if you look at it objectively for a split second, you see a lot of good, you know? Like,
yeah. And we should celebrate that instead of disregard it because we don't like some of the other things that they're doing. And I mean, I don't know, I can vaguely recall, I think there's like one thing that Biden did that I was like, that was actually good. And it surprised me. But it was,
there were a few things. There were a few things that he did that I celebrated. Because
I don't remember what they are.
they were intrinsically good and right, you know, and there wasn't a lot, but there were a couple things where I said, hey, I'm going to celebrate this too, because I want to see more of this, you know, like, and I don't care who did it. If they actually did this thing that's good for humanity, like it's something worth celebrating. Yeah. So, yeah.
I think that the cancel culture, in my opinion, I believe it is dying. I think that the media is trying to prop it up and make it still their weapon of choice, but they're losing traction because you can't have something as strategically bad as that continue to work for too long, you know? And I think that people are getting tired of it. And I think that there's more of a future here, especially in Hollywood, in the entertainment industry. And I've got a lot of thoughts on that, but do you have any thoughts on whether or not cancel culture is going to continue on, or?
I think that certain aspects of it are, I'm thinking about a certain reference. So there's an article I pulled up earlier because I was thinking about Gina Carano's. She was an actress who played in The Mandalorian, which was like a popular Disney show, Star Wars show that they did, I don't know, in 2020 or something like that, or 2019. I don't know. Anyways, I think they've done several seasons of it, but she was only in like maybe 1 or 2 seasons. And the reason is because they canceled her based on conservative remarks that she made publicly. And that was the reason they canceled her. And so what she did was she beat them at their own game. So this is the lawsuit there. This is the settlement the headline. Disney settles Gina Carano's lawsuit after firing her from Mandalorian for comparing being conservative in the U.S. to being Jewish in word we're not saying, Germany. Okay. And so she was making some remarks, and they were very strong remarks, but you know, maybe it wasn't necessarily appropriate, but she was being canceled because she was defending conservatives, right? And so this is what happened in the Elon Musk backed suit. So Elon Musk actually backed her lawsuit. Carano argued that Disney and Lucasfilm, the company behind the Star Wars franchise, canned her for promoting conservative opinions that other male stars had previously shared without consequence. So she played the sexist card on them and beat them at their own game. And I'm like, that is fantastic. Like, that is so great. You know, she used, because that's like one of the things of, it's like, we've got all these cards that we play as the cancel culture. It's like, you better be like this. You better be like this. She's like, well, I'm just going to use that against you. You know, like you play the system against you. And I really feel like that's the case. Cancel culture has gotten so ridiculous in their standards that all you have to do is flip the script and say, are you actually doing what you're saying you're doing? Like, or are you a hypocrite? You know, and it's like, every single time the standards have gotten so ridiculous that there's no way they're living up to their own standards. Not saying their standards are right or good, but there's no way they're living up to them. And that's exactly what she did, and it's just so funny. And that she was able to do that, and that she was able to get Disney to settle based on that.
Here's a fun conspiracy theory for you. I didn't know that Elon Musk backed that. What if Elon's trying to buy Disney? Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah, that could be.
That would be a crazy thought.
That would be a crazy thing.
Well, here's another interesting thing that they did on this podcast, the Bill Maher podcast. They started talking about California and basically how bad it is there. And I thought it was really interesting that Bill Maher. My dogs,
your dog has a lot of things to say. You've got to let him.
They're very excited about this topic. So anyway, hopefully they stay out there. So Bill Maher was talking about Hollywood in California, obviously, like literally the specific location, not just the movies in general. And he asked Chris Pratt, he was like, the things that I'm reading are that everybody's leaving Hollywood. Why are you still there? And Chris Pratt basically confirmed that, which I think is interesting. And so then they started talking a little bit more smack on California. And Bill Maher says, it's almost galling the way it has its hooks in us. And Pratt says, what's that? And then Maher says, California. And so they're talking about like just how bad the taxes are, how California literally is just driving everybody out of there. Wow. And that brings me to my other conclusion, which is that I do think that this cancel culture is losing its grip. And it is specifically losing its grip on Hollywood or entertainment media, we should now say, because it does appear as though Hollywood is dying in some sort of way. And you can evidence that by looking at the fact that a lot of these actors are moving to Arizona and Texas. Because the rules and the regulations are much easier in these two states for people to do their films, and they're less restricted on things. And when you start putting the entertainment industry in a location as conservative as Texas, that's going to start bleeding through. And we're already seeing the bleed through of that into the entertainment industry. And I personally think that there's going to be a revolution in the entertainment industry because people are sick and tired of it. And we're going to see an exodus of all of this garbage and an introduction of new, better, better, obviously in our viewpoint, more conservative values hitting the screens, because people are hungry for that again. And I actually, it's funny because I don't normally wear a shirt like this, but I actually had a little audition earlier before we hit this live where that's for awesome. Like a random little thing here locally, because I'm into all of that too. I like writing, acting, all that good stuff. And so I had to put this shirt on because it was appropriate for the scene. But I see it everywhere. I see a lot of things coming over this direction, and I think cancel culture is going to die because all of the media is coming to the right place, and that's a clear sign that like we're done, we're sick of it. That's my final thought and opinion on that.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good, and I would add this. I'm going to tack this onto the end because I think just the person, that quote you read earlier about the person who's like nothing good can ever come from Donald Trump, essentially is what they were saying. One of the things I saw recently is that RFK was being interviewed, and he said that about Trump, he said he calls me 3 or 4 times a week and says, where are you? Why aren't people healthier yet? And he said, so he's keeping me under pressure, And so it's like that if you just look at the things that they're saying and actually trying and do and you follow that for a little bit, you see that like, hey, maybe they're not doing it. And I'm talking to the liberal side right now. That's who I'm addressing. Is this imaginary liberal commentator audience, or whatever? That. But it's like if you just look at what they're actually saying and doing, you can see that like Trump cares about Americans being healthy, and RFK Jr. especially cares about Americans being healthy. Maybe he has some ideas that are wild, or unorthodox or whatever, and it's like. So it's like, there's some, there's a filter there that needs to happen. But at the same time, it's like they, the administration actually cares. Whereas normally it's just, let's defend the prescription drug companies because they're the ones that are in lobbying in Congress. Let's defend those that are, paying the bill for us and, and our
Mhm.
campaigns and all that kind of stuff. And we're not going to care what Americans are eating. We're not going to care what's, it's like this administration actually cares. And that's what they're showing. That's what they're saying. If Trump's calling RFK 3 times a week and being like, are people getting healthier? He cares. And so I would end with that. Any final thoughts, Doug, before we jump off?
Just one real quick little thing. I do just want to answer this question because I think it's a good question. Eric's asking, do you think they're going to promote the woke culture still? He asked that when I was talking about everybody coming over to Texas and Arizona. I think that it is there's not going to be a clean cut. There's no cold turkey. I think that it's going to be a transition because people are going to see that it's not working. The woke culture isn't working, but we should still be vigilant because what will happen is there's going to be a lot of grifters who are going to want to play on the conservative card who really aren't, and they're not going to be in it for real. And we need to keep calling that out and keep pushing forward and making sure that like the media that we consume is the good media that we want to see more of, and just push towards removing that culture. And I think eventually it will go away, but it's going to take a while. It's baby steps. You can't just have this big media conglomerate for decades that has been like this, and then all of a sudden it's gone. So I think eventually, yes, that might be the answer. And also I gotta one more. I love wrong one. She corrected it. Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome.
That's all I got.
All right. Well, thank y'all for joining us, and we will see you next time. Gold is not just a backup plan if the world falls apart. It's an investment opportunity that could set you up for generations. There's never really a bad time to invest in gold, but you want to make sure you have the right guide. And that is where Genesis Gold Group shines. Whether you are a first-time buyer or a seasoned investor, their trusted expertise and competitive pricing makes them an easy choice. They offer tangible assets in case of emergencies, but they can also design the perfect IRA just for you. And they'll even cut through all that confusing red tape from the IRS. We at Filibusted love the genius design of the Prepper Bar, which breaks up into sections like a chocolate bar. But if you prefer a more high-security insured gold storage, they have that too. And unlike Fort Knox, the gold is actually there and 100% owned by you. Genesis Gold Group is a safe, simple, and convenient way to invest. Visit filibustedgold.com today for your free investment guide from Genesis Gold Group.